Okay, I put the SQL Server 2005 disk in the machine. You'll notice at the top, this auto ran shows us all kind of information. Now, Microsoft's done a really good job of giving you tons of information and showing you exactly what you need to get this loaded. First of all, you'll notice up here, the SQL Server 2005 comes in a number of disks, or you'll get multiple disks. Disk 1 is the actual installation disk. Disk 2 is a tools disk. You will also notice I'm using the Community Technology Preview Edition because of the time that I'm actually working on this video. The final release is not quite out. It's due almost any day now. By the time I finish the video, it will be out, but you won't see any major differences. There are some minor ones, and I'll point them out as we go through. So I put the disk in, and it auto runs to get us to here. And notice over here we have a couple of things to do. We can, first of all, check our hardware and software requirements. And so if I mouse on that and click, it gives us a list of all of our requirements that we need for 32 and 64 bits. I can close that. I can read release notes. If I'm having trouble sleeping at night, these are great things to read. Actually, there is some really good information in here. For example, you'll notice on uninstalling SQL Server 2005, for example, if I simply click on that, it takes me to how to go about doing that. Notice also there's a SQL Server Upgrade Advisor here. Then under the installation, notice that if I want to do the client installation wizard or the server components themselves, then down at the bottom I can browse the CD, visit the SQL Server website, or review the license agreement and so forth. I'm going to choose to install a SQL Server component. Now I have a default instance on this machine, and I'm going to install a named instance, and then I will use that later in the course to show you the difference between the two. So first up, I will read all this information. I know you'll probably want to take the time to do that. I'm not going to read it to you right now. We agree to all that. And notice it's going to come up in configuring components. And you remember the components was at first set. The required components were installed successfully. Now it's going to scan my computer to make sure that I've got everything it needs. And now it's going to have me install or modify. Now this is real interesting right here. Remember the SCC that I mentioned earlier. Notice it went through and it checked a lot of things on my machine. And I want you to notice something here. And this is actually kind of cool that it happened this way. You'll see I have a minimum hardware requirement error on my machine. And I can tell you what that is. If I click on this, it will give me a useless message here. But it's telling me that the current system doesn't meet the minimum hardware requirements for this release. The problem is my machine only has 512 megabytes of memory. Don't ask me why. Everything else in my office, my laptops, and I'll have a gig. Just haven't done it here yet. But that's really what it's trying to get at here. But notice it's told me all the various things that were checked, MSXML, pending reboot requirement, and so forth. But notice down here on the report, I can view the report on this and see exactly what happened with everything. And so here's my actual report. Now this could be some great CYA, if you will. I can print this out later and see what's going on. Notice I can also filter it to show only the warnings or only successful actions. So again, very cool stuff. Notice I can save the report to a file, I can copy it to the clipboard, or I can send it as email. So I click Next there, past that, and now the window installer begins to kick in, and we're going to start that Setup MSI. And if you'll notice what it's doing, it's detecting, you noticed it detected IIS there if you saw that go by. It's going to do a lot of things. Okay, now it's going to take care of legals on that, and I'll go past that. Now it's asking me, what do you want to set up? Notice I can simply choose the various pieces and parts that I want to set up. I can go to Advanced, and of course get my hands on a lot more dangerous things. And you'll see down here Books Online, and we'll talk about Books Online a little bit later. And if you notice, this is very similar to the Word setups, that we can determine exactly what's going to be put on the machine or not. So I'll be careful to choose the correct ones here. I'll talk about Books Online a little bit later. Now, here's where we're going to tell it, do we want to do a default instance or a named instance? I already have a default instance in my box, so I'm going to do a named instance, and I'm going to call this one Mark. Now, notice down here I can check installed instances, and it tells me I've already got one installed instance here, and this is my default instance. So I'm going to take a named instance here, and I'll hit Next. And we will let this install take place. Now I'm going to pause the machine and come back to you in another video. and we'll continue from this point right here with the service account.